Hello, Milwaukee Bucks fans. Welcome back to Bucks Latest, presented by FanArch.com. I'm your host, Dean Simon. Please consider liking, subscribing, turning on those post notifications to stay up to date with all the latest trends and recent updates regarding the Milwaukee Bucks. So, a new, potentially bombshell report just came out from OpenCourtBasketball.com that, it has to do with the ongoing Giannis trade saga that probably won't end until tip-off from, when next season begins. But this new report from OpenCourtBasketball.com reveals that the Milwaukee Bucks were looking for a seismic, league-shattering haul from the San Antonio Spurs in a potential Giannis trade, which makes plenty of sense, of course, just talking about the kind of talent that he is, what he's done for the franchise, placing top 3 in MVP voting, all-NBA first team for 7 years in a row. You don't really have to talk about his accomplishments to get, to fully grasp the kind of player that Giannis is and the kind of package that he may demand for the Bucks front office. But according to the report specifically, the Bucks front office said that they'd trade Giannis to San Antonio for a package of Stephon Castle, 2025 Rookie of the Year, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, the number 2 pick in this year's draft, the Atlanta Hawks draft picks that are controlled by the Spurs, and 5 more first-round picks on top of that. So, for all the people coming out and saying, oh my gosh, the Desmond Bane trade to the Orlando Magic, they gave up 4 first-round picks, a pick swap, what would a trade for Giannis look like? What would a trade for Kevin Durant look like? That, I guess. But, essentially, Giannis isn't going anywhere anytime soon, at least not to the Spurs, for sure. That's what this trade tells me. Of course, it's a pretty ridiculous haul for, even for a superstar of Giannis's caliber. Like, it's a crazy, crazy return, but it's completely justified when talking about the caliber of player that Giannis is, smack dab in the prime of his career at 30 years old. Honestly, it's pretty scary to think that he's only 30 and he's already done so much in his career, probably locked down a top 15 to 20 spot in terms of player rankings of all time by this point in his career. Giannis isn't going anywhere, and these new reports have basically shut down the idea of anybody being able to offer, number one, a better trade package than that, but number 2, it just goes to show, how serious the Bucks are in terms of if Giannis were to ever leave this franchise, you better believe that we're getting the moon and the stars back from any prospective suitor for Giannis. So that was a pretty interesting update, and, it could be pretty consequential for the future of Giannis trade offers, potential Giannis suitors, even as the years go by, because you better believe the Bucks are still going to want a package of that nature from any prospective team that is looking to trade for him. So moving on, Fansided's Dalton Sell recently claimed in an article this morning that if the Bucks' reported aggressiveness that has come out from places like ESPN when it comes to free agency, trades, if any of that reported aggressiveness means anything, it should definitely mean that Kyle Kuzma will all but certainly find a new home next year. So Dalton Sell says himself, Milwaukee's aggressiveness could see Kyle Kuzma's tenure as a Buck end after a short, brutal stint to close the 2024-25 season. Right now, it's all about the waiting game. The Bucks have not been a team featured heavily in the rumor mill. I don't know about that. But that was also the case when they traded for Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard. They are always lurking, quietly waiting for the right moment to make their move. Kuzma has a roughly $23 million salary heading into 2025-26, and Sell believes that a package potentially of Pat Connaughton after he accepts his about $9 million player option, I want to say, and some form of draft capital could land the franchise a desperately needed upgrade, whether that's a Kevin Durant type of player or, a Desmond Bane type of player that was just moved. That obviously remains to be seen, but it looks as though Kyle Kuzma's contract could be one that is sought after by certain teams that are looking to get a certain number of salary onto their books to throw him in another trade to acquire that superstar, like to get that Kevin Durant type player, not necessarily like the Bucks moving Kuzma directly for that guy, but he could go to a middleman team that then trades him to the Phoenix Suns in a crazy multi-team Kevin Durant deal or something of that nature. While we talk about the quality of player that Kyle Kuzma is to this point, and obviously the really rough season that he had for the Bucks after he came over from the Wizards this past year, his contract still does hold some sort of value. He still can mean something to a potential team, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that he is eventually dealt from the Bucks this summer, and it could be, while again not the same quality of player right now as a guy like Desmond Bane, it could be a Desmond Bane type of trade where it was all worked on in silence. Nobody came out with any reports. It just happened out of nowhere. I could definitely see the same exact thing happening for a trade about Kyle Kuzma. So According to Sell, the Bucks are probably going to list Kyle Kuzma on their trade block and be aggressively shopping him in trades, trying to see if they can get something to go down for the majority of the summer, and even probably going into next year. So I would agree with that sentiment. I think they should, and it's really the only right thing to do at this point with a team like this, with a player like Giannis stirring up all this controversy with the trade rumors now coming back. You need to build a contender right away. Maybe they'll have this next year as a gap year, but you need to build a contender fast to keep this guy happy. And you don't want to get complacent right now, especially after last year ended, or how last year ended, I want to say. So moving forward, Bleacher Report's Eric Pincus released an article detailing some of his free agency predictions, and one has surprisingly a former All-Star point guard headed to the Bucks this offseason. But of course, it's DAngelo Russell, the one-time All-Star, formerly a Brooklyn Net, now a Brooklyn Net again after being traded there from the Lakers for a second time. His career arc is just something special. But anyways, Pincus said, and I quote, "Russell is a talented scorer and capable shooter, but he has remained a journeyman throughout his career. The Nets may pay him simply to reach the minimum team salary, projected to be $139.2 million, but that might be designed to turn his contract around as a tradable asset." And his prediction was that perhaps the Milwaukee Bucks step up with the best offer at the taxpayer mid-level exception. So Russell wouldn't be a terrible option, especially if the Bucks are possibly headed for that gap year, like I previously mentioned, with little to no expectations of competing at all. Allowing DAngelo Russell, again, a guy who is, believe it or not, an accomplished player. He's shown plenty of flash, made it to an All-Star game when he was leading that Nets team in 2018, 2019. Allowing him to do something on his own and have an offense to himself kind of and play free basketball. It may not lead to wins at the outset, but it could definitely put butts in seats and make for a very entertaining product. DAngelo Russell has been a personal favorite player of mine for the past couple of years. And again, it's just because of that free nature that he plays with. He's incredible at creating his own shot, has grown as a playmaker drastically. Of course, the defensive side of the ball there remains a lot to be seen in terms of potential improvement from that guy, but he's really a special offensive talent that I feel like he hasn't really gotten the chance outside of that one season for the Nets to really show what he's capable of. When he was moved to the Golden State Warriors, he did keep up that kind of production, but if you allow him to go to the Bucks, who knows if Giannis doesn't play for a majority of the year, obviously with Damian Lillard out for most of, if not every single game of the 2025-26 season, DAngelo Russell could put up 20 a game easily. Whether he does it efficiently or not, who knows? But it would make for an entertaining product, to say the least. And last but not least, a collection of ESPN writers like Bobby Marks, Brian Windhorst, they prepared trade ideas for the Bucks to build around Giannis, and in the case of Giannis leaving via trade. And this is something specifically an article that I covered before in a previous episode. But these writers, I don't know why they did this. This one's maybe a little bit over the top. They came up with a Damian Lillard Bradley Beal swap, and they said on paper there is logic to a swap of Beal for Lillard. The Bucks were linked to Beal during the season when it would have meant building a package around the now departed Middleton, and getting nothing out of Lillard's $54 million salary while he recovers from Achilles surgery might not be tenable. Don't get me wrong, I really don't want to come across as a Bradley Beal hater, or extreme hater. I think Bradley Beal is still a very solid player, an extremely solid player, in fact, because he was still scoring 17 a game pretty efficiently as a third option, sometimes fourth option for the Phoenix Suns. But obviously he's just not the kind of player that's worth a $53.6 million salary for 2025-26 and a potential $57.1 million salary when he will accept his player option for the 2026-27 campaign. I still think Bradley Beal could be an effective player for any contender, any team that's trying to just get this explosive scoring punch on their team to either be a third or fourth option or come off the bench as their sixth man in like a Malik Monk type of role, Jamal Crawford type of role, if you will. Guys that have shown, worthy as being an archetype to win like the sixth man of the year. That I feel like that's usually the kind of player that wins the award every year. That like this really shifty, good shooting, kind of athletic shooting guard that can put balls in the basket. And Bradley Beal definitely fits that archetype. He fits that kind of mold. And if he were to go to a team like the Bucks, of course he would have a little bit more of a featured role because no of course, no Lillard because you're swapping him for Lillard, no Middleton anymore. It would just be Bradley Beal manning that guard spot if Gary Trent Jr. weren't to return, if Kevin Porter Jr. weren't to return. Bradley Beal would have the chance to tap back into his earlier days with the Washington Wizards where he was averaging 30 a game. Again, would not lead to winning, most likely, but could make for an entertaining product as they try and get through this gap year. They prepare for next offseason to kind of scrounge their money together and get another big name. But getting Bradley Beal on the team would, nullify a lot of those options because of that potential $57 million salary for 2026-27. Just unreal to think about that the Phoenix Suns were thinking about taking that on in the first place. But anyways, that'll be it for me. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Bucks Latest. I have been Dean Simon. Please consider liking, subscribing, turning on those post notifications for more updates regarding the Milwaukee Bucks. I'll see you in the next one. Go Bucks.